I'm proud and happy to present Mahesh from the United States. He will tell us something about Kanban and especially portfolio and upstream Kanban. And yeah, Mahesh is founder and entrepreneur of Swift Kanban, or Digité company name. And yeah, I don't want to take so much time for you, so I hand over to you. Stage is yours. Very welcome.
Thank you, Michael. And thank you, everybody, for attending this session. Let me make sure that I'm recording it as needed. I think I've started already. All right, so let me share my screen. Okay, hopefully you can see this. And let me start in the presentation mode here. Okay, so hopefully you can all see this. So first, again, welcome to the session, and thank you for the opportunity. What I want to present today is our experience with implementing Swift Kanban and Kanban at our customers, and the impact that we have seen of how successful these implementations are. How successful these implementations are based on the usage of upstream and portfolio Kanban. So let's get started. I'm Mahesh Singh, and I am an AKT, AKC, and also a co-founder at Digité. Just a little bit about me. We started with Swift Kanban in 2011, and we have had a different variety of customers and different size of customer teams implementing and automating Kanban.
Egal, jetzt nicht mehr.
I think somebody needs to go on mute. I'm sorry. I hear some noise. Okay. And of course, Digité as a company has been around for the last nearly 20 years. Like I said, I have worked closely with our customers for both helping them implement their Kanban initiatives, as well as, of course, in automating their Kanban work on Swift Kanban. And I am here in the Bay Area, close to San Francisco, and it's a little bit about me there. I'm also a foodie. Love to try different types of food, and especially I'm very fond of good quality tea. So I'm always looking for good tea wherever I travel. In spare time, I do other things like music and ride my motorbike. Anyway, so our experience and findings with relation to the kind of companies that we have seen implementing Kanban and the kind of success that they were meeting with both Kanban as well as, of course, automating that through Swift Kanban. So we see clearly that there are companies that are they like to implement a tool, and using the tool they want to implement a particular process. And we see that many of them are very typical of the way that organizations implement any type of an enterprise tool. There is initially an enthusiasm, there is a level of success that they meet, but then very quickly that it dies out. And then, of course, there are companies that stay the course, and they are able to succeed with it over a period of time. So we are looking at these companies that have shown some level of success with implementing Kanban. And in these companies who stay there, there are, again, two types of companies. Those that have remained although they remain at a fairly low level of maturity, low level of using of Kanban, where they use Kanban mainly as a visualization tool and as a work management, work tracking tool, or a reporting tool. And then, of course, there are those companies, much fewer in number, unfortunately, who steadily and sometimes quickly go through a maturity curve, and they go up the maturity curve and are able to actually get the benefits of the Kanban method as it was supposed to be intended. And so we started to look at what are these different types of companies and what are they doing differently. And then we ourselves started to change the way that we implement, that we engage with them. So we have seen companies that start off with a small team. They start off at a individual, even at an individual level, or sometimes with a small team. Typically, a large majority of these teams continue to have a weak implementation of Kanban. So they're typically what you would call the proto Kanban or level 0 maturity, where they remain primarily focused on their own workflow or their own work, but also primarily on the visualization aspects of Kanban. And not only do you see that in the way that they continue to use Kanban, but it also shows up in the way that their implementation of specific Kanban principles comes in. So, for example, implementing WIP limits is very, very weak for them. They may have WIP limits. Sometimes they may not even have WIP limits. But if they do have WIP limits, then following the WIP limits or sticking to the WIP limits is very, very poor. They frequently exceed the WIP limits. They are not too successful at managing the WIP limits. Implementation of any kind of policies, especially any kind of agreement with their stakeholders, is almost non-existent. And one of the biggest challenges that we've seen with these types of implementations is that even though Kanban is supposed to be a pull system, they remain very traditional in the way that they assign work to their team members. It remains a very manager assignment to team members focus, a very push-based assignment of work to their team members. And so in these places, we see that the predominant focus of these teams is like a reporting tool, not so much an improvement tool. Especially in the functions of software and IT, which is where, of course, the majority of our customers are using Kanban or implementing Kanban. These problems remain standard, and therefore their challenges, the very problems that they're trying to address with Kanban, they continue to persist. So, for example, one of the biggest challenges that most teams face, especially in IT and software, is the high level of demand that they have, which comes from their own management or from their customers. That level of demand remains very high, and they have a very strong problem managing that demand. As a result, therefore, because of the high level of work that they have, they are unable to implement very strong policies on how to manage their backlog. And so therefore the backlog management practices remain weak. Another challenge that especially IT teams have, but even software development teams that are doing product maintenance, they continue to be affected by interrupt driven work. So they're doing work, but something high priority comes across, some priority one or criticality one item comes down, server goes down, etc. And they continue to get interrupted by this high priority work, and therefore it affects the overall flow that they're able to achieve with Kanban. And so in general, initially there is a level of excitement, there is a level of euphoria in terms of implementing a new management paradigm, a visual management method of Kanban. But very quickly it gives way, and they return back to sort of business as usual in terms of the overburdening and the dissatisfaction that exists. A third aspect of it that we find is, of course, disconnected leadership. So we find that in most of these implementations, there isn't a high level or a senior person who is involved in the implementation of Kanban. There is no real involvement from the leadership or the management part of the organization. And because of that, there is, of course, there is not enough funding available and not enough investment made in terms of understanding the Kanban method and understanding some of the deeper principles of the Kanban method. And typically we have seen that maybe one or two people in the entire organization have a good understanding of the Kanban method, but most of the team that is involved with using the Swift Kanban tool or adopting Kanban, they have very little awareness of the deeper methods, deeper principles of Kanban and the benefits of Kanban. And so we started to ask the question, typically you've heard the problem of Scrum, but that teams that implement Agile or any other, Scrum or any other sort of traditional Agile method, they have the concept of Scrum, but that they're implementing Scrum, but there are these challenges. And we started to wonder whether this is the same problem that is affecting Kanban teams as well. Because they have all of the challenges that are listed here, whether it is following WIP limits, whether it is achieving the right culture for the leadership especially, and whether they were able to show sustained benefit because of the implementation of Kanban. So we were looking at the sort of analysis and trying to see if there are places where this is actually better. And so we think that there is hope because we see that a number of organizations are getting it and they're able to do this better. So two broad styles of engagement that we have seen. So one is this is where we implement Swift Kanban and we ask these organizations to look at their current status of Kanban implementations. And we've seen two types of companies. One, where teams are, they're very focused on getting their Kanban boards automated on the Swift Kanban tool, and they are happy to just start to automate their Kanban board, and they're off to the races. They start to just work with their own Kanban systems. But then there is a second type of organization where the core team that we engage with, there is an extensive amount of discussion on how are they going to actually implement the tool, and how are they going to actually design the Kanban board in a way that they are able to manage it effectively. And so the discussion is extensive and upfront, where they're looking at how to sort of manage their overall system. And in these type 2 engagements, some of the early indicators of how they do this is, firstly, there is an overall style that we see, that the core team that we engage with typically comes from a very strong lean agile center of excellence kind of a background. It is not just one or two people, it is an organization wide focus that they have. And we've seen this in some of our customers, and I will share some examples of that towards the end. They are not only doing this in software and IT, but they're also doing it in other parts of the organization. So there is typically a broader organizational focus on lean and agile. The second aspect of it, in a lesser number of cases we have seen, is that there is a little bit of a portfolio management culture, where there is a team that is responsible for defining and managing the portfolio and the risk management functions which are associated with portfolio management. And there is a defined process around that. And the second thing, like I said, there's two sort of noticeable patterns of discussion. There is a lot of that upfront discussion, and the two things that they're talking about. One is, how do they do a top-down alignment? That is, if they have defined portfolios, they define their OKRs, organizational key result areas. How do they then implement that throughout the organization? And the second type of discussion is where they're looking more at a immediate workflow and immediate value stream impact, where they're looking at who are the immediate stakeholders to the left, upstream stakeholders, or who are the stakeholders to the right. And we notice this pattern of discussion with the organization that we going to implement Swift Kanban. So in general, what we notice is that this is how they're leading their implementation in a different way. They're either focusing on upstream Kanban, where they're looking at an extended value stream, not necessarily just their own Kanban board, or it could be both an and or an or, where they're doing also a discussion or lead in with portfolio Kanban, where they're looking at alignment of their organizational objectives to the way that those objectives are getting implemented. So just a little bit of further detail on how these two concepts are being implemented. So if you look at upstream Kanban, of course, all of you are very familiar with the upstream Kanban sort of principles. And what we observe in these cases where they're implementing the upstream Kanban is two things. One is that, depending on the kind of team that they are implementing it with, traditional agile like a Scrum or XP or others were very focused on the downstream, on the delivery functions, where the main focus was the developers, the testers, and the people involved in building those user stories and delivering them on a sprint basis every 2 weeks or 3 weeks. So the focus was predominantly on delivery. And so when these teams are implementing Kanban, their focus also tends to remain more downstream. And so therefore, they are not able to get the benefits of the Kanban that we're typically trying to get them to do. And so while some of them may continue to, they may have some success with implementing it purely in the downstream functions, but they're really not getting the benefits of the overall value stream optimization, overall system optimization. And so that is what the teams that were able to focus on the upstream were able to get. So early signs of those who had succeeded was in exactly some of the things that we saw not there in the proto Kanban implementation. So firstly, we see a very clear definition of their intake policy. So there is a very clear focus on saying that how is it that they're going to replenish their Kanban boards? How are they going to make sure that the work that arrives on their Kanban board is ready to be worked upon? So there is focus on WIP limits. There is a focus on level of detail and clarity. So they have defined explicit policies on the level of detail that, let's say, a user story or an epic needs to have in order for the team to be able to work on. There is a clear prioritization process that they've got, and there is a clear understanding that the prioritization process has certain aspects of it, like what are they going to do if something new comes along? How are they going to substitute something that's already sitting in the ready column with something new that is more important? That if they bring something new in, something else has to go out. The whole concept of discarding and aborting work, that has been very clearly defined in terms of saying that you will want to better manage both the abort and discard process through the I'm going to kind of quickly jump through this slide here and build it up, that they want to make sure that their conversations with their stakeholders is upfront in terms of how they're going to manage their overall demand and capacity. So as a result, they understand that their own work is impacted by other people and how they're doing their work, and their own work is impacting the work of people who are further downstream, and therefore they need to have policies in place. And unless they have policies in place, they cannot successfully implement their own Kanban system effectively. So they have had these conversations, and therefore they're able to look at the system more holistically. Okay, and so what this does is the upstream function not only helps the upstream functions such as product management or marketing or sales, it gives them greater visibility, it visualizes the upstream processes, but it also, and I'm going to again build out this slide here, so it definitely facilitates collaboration between the product management and marketing functions which are upstream and the delivery functions which are downstream. It also helps to minimize wastage in the system because they maximize the amount of discards, which is before the commit point, and minimizes the aborts. Once something has been taken up for work, it minimizes the aborting of work that is after the commit point. So it reduces the overall amount of waste that the delivery team faces, typically in systems where you have a high level of aborts that happen or work that gets discontinued or canceled even after it has been taken up. But it also, of course, upstream Kanban helps de-stress the downstream functions because it makes the life of the delivery team much more easy and simple. It helps them implement the WIP limits and helps them get the upstream functions to respect those WIP limits much more easily. They get a better understanding of their own delivery cadence and their own capacity of delivery. And therefore, they get overall a better way to manage their backlog and the way that they manage the replenishment processes and backlog grooming processes. Whichever process they might be using, they may be doing story mapping, they may be doing portfolio Kanban, they may be doing standard backlog management processes. But it becomes easier because it is now visualized in their overall process. And overall, of course, therefore, it ensures a smoother flow. So upstream Kanban helps both the upstream functions as well as the downstream functions. This is, I think, the sort of big benefit that they provide, and for them, therefore, to stay invested in Kanban. So very quickly, moving on to the portfolio Kanban side of things. This is now more of a place where there is a, I apologize for this. I'm going to close my window here. There's some noise outside the house. The upstream, the portfolio Kanban function helps management get involved in a more effective way and allows them to align their top-down, their sort of top strategic objectives to the way that teams are actually working. If you look at traditional portfolio management, it has been a very complex function and somewhat esoteric function where it is not very clear to the delivery teams how portfolio management actually gets done. And part of it is because it has traditionally remained with the senior management function, which of course it continues to be. It has been difficult because of just the tooling and the processes that are involved. It has been difficult to propagate the importance of those work and the nature of the work to downstream or to lower level teams and to communicate it effectively to the teams. Like I said, the tooling has been complex, so therefore it has been, whether it is portfolio management tools or whether it is financial tools, the way that portfolio strategies get defined remain the domain of very few people at the top and doesn't get easily visible to the rest of the delivery teams. And therefore, it becomes difficult for the delivery teams in turn to also provide status updates and progress updates to the portfolio level to be able to have sort of a complete visibility to what is the work that is going on and whether it is really feeding to the organizational objectives or not. Portfolio Kanban completely simplifies that process. So Portfolio Kanban really, firstly, provides a far more simple and elegant alternative. It is firstly, it's a very visual, easy to communicate and track tool, and therefore what we have seen is in companies that are implementing portfolio Kanban, a very simple 3-level portfolio, which is driven by either a focus on the flight levels model, which Klaus Leopold initially or sort of proposed, and it is now a successful model in many organizations, or even without explicitly using the flight levels model, just having the ability to apply Kanban to portfolio level as well as to lower levels provides that ability for them to easily communicate and track work both ways, from top down and bottom up. And secondly, what it did was, because of the focus of Kanban on sort of the very simple principles of lead time and cost of delay, it reduced the complexity of understanding the value of delaying something, or the cost of delaying something, and the value of completing something far more in far more understandable terms than all of the financial complexity that typically portfolio management functions or portfolio management tools dealt with. So it completely simplifies both the visualization and management, as well as the actual prioritization based on the factors of lead time and cost of delay. So again, just to kind of give you I just want to say this, that the other elegance of Kanban is that you can apply it at any level. So you can start at the top level and go top to bottom, or you can apply it at the bottom and then start to abstract it and go upwards. So in that sense, organizations have the flexibility when they're using portfolio Kanban to go in either direction and still be effective at that. So therefore, they are able to really use this much more effectively. This is just an example of how we have seen our customers implement it at a strategic level, where they implement their OKR and backlog. They then expand those OKRs into program level boards or program level initiatives in a program level board, which is at the tactical level. And then at the lowest level, of course, it goes to the teams, where it is being, whether it is epics and user stories or other types of work items that the teams are doing. All of that is very simply visualized and very easily achieved by connecting these different boards. Here is an example of it in the way that we have seen it being used in marketing boards. So you have marketing themes and marketing campaigns that are defined in a portfolio type of a lane, where these themes and campaigns are driven by the work that is being done at the lowest level, which is individual marketing deliverables that are being done at the lowest level, at the team level. So just having a simple visualization of this and then being able to report the progress of the work at the team and the campaign level makes it far more effective for them to achieve it. And by using principles of your overall lead time to achieve certain types of work, and the cost of delay of delaying or risking some of the specific themes and campaigns that you might be considering, makes it far easier for them to prioritize the right things at the right time. So in terms of benefits, we see that for the leadership, it becomes an easy way for them to engage and connect with the execution teams. It provides them a far easier ability to prioritize, and then it provides them visibility to the execution level. So if you have to look at the maturity model, it gives them an easy way to describe what is it that they do, and gives them visibility to how those things are being done. And from a delivery side, it gives the sort of operational managers an easy way to collaborate across functions and manage dependencies far more effectively. And for the actual teams, it gives them a complete context to why they are doing what they're doing. So it gives them a why we exist kind of a context, and therefore makes it far easy for them to understand what they're doing. So overall, it supports and encourages KMM level 3, level 5 behavior, although they may not be overall at an organization at that level. So in summary, I think what we see is that alignment is key, both top-down alignment as well as what we call left-right alignment, in terms of being able to make sure that the entire set of stakeholders, senior management, customers, as well as other stakeholders in the organization, are in alignment with you as you're planning and designing your Kanban system. And therefore, in general, what we see is that these two functions, or these two disciplines, help you implement longer-lasting, more sustained Kanban implementations. And what we've seen is that organizations that do this, firstly, have at the very simple level, we see that they have multi-year and longer Kanban initiatives. It is not that they try something, it goes away after some time because they're not able to implement it, they are not successful at it. These companies organizations have done long-term successful Kanban implementations. They're more effective in the way that they start, and therefore because they have greater clarity of purpose, both at the top as well as the bottom level. In general, because of the way that they're implementing it, they are able to invest in Kanban training better. They are able to justify the need for their investment. And therefore, at individual level, at the entire organizational level, they are able to achieve greater understanding and benefits of the principles of the Kanban method. And therefore, they get greater maturity. And in general, they become less fragile as an organization. And finally, again, most important, I don't know how you see this in the organization that you are part of or in the customers that you work with. Many times in the sort of less mature organizations, the moment the champion goes, the entire system sort of falls apart. In these kind of companies, since the leadership is involved, the entire organization is involved. Even if your champion departs and is replaced by somebody else, or even if there is no replacement for that person, the implementation of Kanban and the belief in Kanban continues, and they are able to continue to benefit from the use of Kanban. So I put this in a sort of simple visual. So if you look at the level of customer value achieved and sort of a gradual progression of the maturity, the typical implementation will start off at the team level, but very quickly then they go to sort of the neighboring stakeholders, the sort of your left and right alignment of looking at your immediate upstream and downstream workflows and sort of focusing on improving the overall workflow rather than just your own workflow. And then, of course, looking at it at an overall organization level, and therefore getting that high level of value that you don't get if you focus on only the team level. And so that sort of is the generation of value that you get using both upstream and portfolio Kanban principles. And just a couple of customer slides here to give you specific statements that we have got from our own customers. So this is from a lady called Leila Nakashima. She's the Director of Planning and Strategy at Luiza Labs, which is the largest retail organization in Brazil. And they credited both portfolio and upstream Kanban for helping them move from a very physical retail operation to completely virtual and e-commerce driven operations in the last 9 months since the COVID hit in their organization. And so they credit both portfolio and upstream Kanban principles that they use, and of course how Swift Kanban helped them implement these two disciplines. And similarly, this is the telecom customers out of Italy, and they implemented upstream Kanban more specifically. And they talk about how they were able to provide greater visibility to their product management and design teams, and therefore achieve greater clarity of work that came to their delivery and ops teams. And as a result, get far greater benefits in terms of their cycle time and throughput performance. And they again, you credit the upstream Kanban as their focus area, why they were able to get so much benefit from it. So this is the last slide. If you have any questions around this, and I apologize for the noise that you might hear right now from outside my house, but hopefully it will go away quickly. But if there are any questions, I'm happy to take those.
Yeah, we have some questions in the chat already. If you like, guys, unmute yourself and ask your questions. Otherwise, I also can read them. One question from Stefan.
Yeah, I'm unmuted.
Stefan first and then Renzo.
Yeah, you had there the levels, strategic, tactical, and operational, and to show the 3 Kanban boards. So the question is, how are those connected to each other? So how, yeah.
Yeah, so again, different organizations do it differently, but it is essentially a way of defining different card types for the different boards. So for example, in the example that I showed of the OKRs, the tactical and the program initiatives and the team level board, that example actually was from our Luiza Labs customer, the one that I showed the code from. So they define a portfolio board where at the top level, the card types are what they call OKRs, organization key result areas. So each card represents a OKR that is defined at the annual level or at the quarterly level. So they have annual OKRs and quarterly OKRs. And then each of those OKRs has multiple program initiatives, which are defined at the second level board, the tactical board. And so one OKR can have multiple program initiatives.
So
and then
one card in the strategic level is a complete board in the technical level. That's what you're saying.
Correct. Boards in the, and then each program initiative in the tactical level is connected to multiple epics at the team level boards, multiple team level boards. So it is a one-to-many boards as well as one-to-many card.
One-to-many. Okay. Thank you.
All right, Renzo, you also had to ask a question.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for your presentation. It was very interesting. One point that came to my mind, or question, was you showed us the picture with customer value, increasing customer value when increasing the maturity. Do you have some evidence or real examples that companies became really more successful? So because also from my experience, sometimes we just implement kind of a system and just we do it and all say, yeah, it seems to be better. But I'm interested in having real evidence and then to see the real success of the company.
Yeah.
Have you such examples?
Yeah, absolutely. So, we in fact did a webinar with the customer, Louisa Labs. I will again, let me just share my screen and show you that. Although I don't have a slide on it here, hopefully you can see my screen. This company, Louisa Labs, we did a webinar with them just about a month back, and they have shown figures. I don't have them with me right now, but they have shown the growth of their revenue and the number of partners, the vendors that they were able to bring online. So they deal with, this is the company in Brazil, they completely deal with physical stores earlier. They have completely enabled these vendors to sell online. So they were able to expand their network from a few tens of, they had like 30, 40 stores which are online. The rest of them were physical. Now they have more than 1,000 vendors who are selling online, who have completely been enabled by their efforts. And as a result, they have seen a growth in their revenue and profit in this year itself, in the times of COVID, in a dramatic way. So I can share with you numbers later on, perhaps. Unfortunately, I don't have them with me right now. But this person who is their lead agile coach, he did the presentation. He completely credited it for the implementation of Kanban, and specifically portfolio Kanban, the way that they do their OKR planning and then execute it through their program and the team level boards. So he presented specifically financial benefits. And if you look at the second one here, although I don't have a quantified number for it, what they said was that because of the reduction of lead time and throughput, improvement in throughput, they were able to deliver more product functionality to their business teams, to their telecom divisions. The team that is using Kanban here and they're implementing Swift Kanban here are the people, they build their billings systems. So they were able to actually bring out more, telecom companies have different packages for different types of businesses and even for individuals. So they were able to bring out more packages, more combinations of their license and their prices. And as a result, able to improve the level of service they were giving to the business. They haven't shared with me any increase in their revenues because of this. I don't know. But certainly they were able to give more options to their business to go sell to their business customers. That is the feedback that we got from them. And similarly, we have seen many other customers. So one of our customers in the US, our biggest customer is United Healthcare. It's one of the largest healthcare insurance companies. And they implemented Kanban in their technology product division. A very key statement from them, again, not quantified from a money perspective, but they said that because of implementing Kanban, they were able to roll out DevOps very effectively. And as a result of that, they were able to free up their teams to do more creative work, far more than anything that they had done in the past. So they were able to reduce the routine on the standard operational activity much. The amount of time that they spent on routine work to such a large extent that they were able to then free up their time for more creative work. And I assume that meant either new products or new features in their existing products, etc. I don't know. Hopefully that gives you some idea.
Oh, thank you. May I add another question on this?
Yes.
Because to me, it would be interesting to see. It could be an abstract kind of a Kanban architecture. Were both similar to the architecture you showed us on a strategic level, the OKRs, and the tactical level down to operational level? It's always the same architecture you use or you try to implement with your customers?
It has come through our sort of understanding of the way that I'm going to go back to the to that slide. It has typically been a variation of this. So it is typically 3 to 4 levels of boards that we see, and typically depending on the overall organization that is implementing it, this structure will exist for each, let's say, large business unit. So at the business unit level, you will have one portfolio board and one tactical board. This is typically a one-to-one, but of course the links between cards are one-to-many. This is at the individual tribe or team level, not tribe, but the squad level. And this is obviously different boards, one for each team. And so typically we have seen this as the structure. Now within each of these, there has been other structures that have been created. So for example, in the program level board, we have seen some people have the strategic initiatives in one swim lane, and then the epics, which are in, I think I have not visualized the epics here. The epics are also at the tactical level board, and only the user stories go to the team level boards. So sometimes they do it where there is only a 3-level structure where the epics and the program initiatives are managed at the tactical level. And sometimes there has been a case where a 4th level board, which is at this level, at the 3rd, below the tactical level, where they manage their epics. And so it follows more of the safe structure where you have the portfolio solution program and the team level. And in fact, some people who are doing this are actually mixing up concepts from SAFe as well as Kanban, and they have a 4-level structure. But typically, it is not more than a 3 or 4-level structure. That has been the typical architecture we have seen.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're very welcome. Thank you for your question.
I would have a question.
Yes.
If I remember right, you said before, if you start with an implementation, you can start from top to down or from bottom to top, if I'm right. What do you think to start in the middle with tactical? With a value stream?
So typically the middle has been more of a level for helping coordination between different teams.
Right.
So it is possible that you may start with both these. So you may have, let's say, one team start off with a board or managing their own value stream, and then the moment a second team comes across and there is a need for coordination between the two teams, then this board comes up very quickly. So as soon as there is need for the coordination between multiple teams, this one will come. So it typically follows the lowest level. I don't believe we have seen an implementation where this is the first board and then later on the lowest level or the higher level comes in. So either it starts at the top, and this is very clearly we have seen this, or it starts at the bottom and then they get connected through 1 or 2 levels of the intermediate level. And I think we see the logic of that, because typically if it is only one team that's implementing it, they don't need any other board for the coordination. Only when they have multiple teams and multiple boards, then you feel the need for managing something at a higher level, which manages the coordination and collaboration. So till you have multiple boards at the lowest level, there possibly isn't any need for this. On the other hand, this one, when you start off at the top level, the moment you have a fairly significant workflow in the progress column, the ongoing column, there is almost immediately a need to break this down into an actual workflow which exists at this level. So this will typically be a multi-stage workflow, and almost immediately they will break this down into the next level workflow board, which visualizes this workflow. Hopefully, does that make sense?
Yeah, of course, this makes sense. Because I only ask, I often see that a lot of companies are working on team level really strongly and try to improve the teams and to make, let's say, high performing teams. But they know there are a lot of dependencies, but more or less they ignore them to improve them.
Yes, either they ignore them or they manage it through spreadsheets or other
whatever. Yes, or they have some tables, or they are aware about this, but and then maybe sometimes they have some kind of dependency manager. I've also seen, or end-to-end manager, but they are more or less reluctant to do this, to make this visible, let's say, on a tactical level.
Yeah.
And sometimes they start on the top level, but don't try, or they are not able to connect to the operational level because the level in the middle, the workflow or the complete flow is missing, and therefore I ask.
Yeah, no, absolutely, you're right. So therefore, I think that this is firstly, it is absolutely critical to have, and secondly, that it follows immediately the moment you have multiple boards at this level, or if you're starting at the top where you need to have the need to visualize the lower level work being done for achieving these objectives or these OKRs.
Hi, I would also have a question, Stefano here,
Yes,
on the use of Kanban in combination of OKRs, because generally what I see happening is that OKRs are defined on a quarterly basis, and then every quarter somehow the slate is blank again and you start from scratch. So in this situation, then do you also keep the OKRs on an ongoing basis, like having a backlog of OKRs? And then as soon as something goes out, something else goes in? Or do you have you also seen it happening with the traditional quarterly or annual approach, where every time you just rethink the whole set?
Yeah, no. So that's a great question, and we've seen again. There aren't too many customers who have yet started to do this very well, but we've seen that typically they will start with what you said at the end. They will start with a very formal quarterly and annual process, and in between there is no updates. But as they start to understand the and actually achieve the continuous delivery, continuous flow type of capability in the lower parts of the organization, then they realize actually it becomes sort of an organizational learning that they don't really need to wait for the end of the quarter for reviewing their OKRs. They can actually do it continuously. So we have seen typically a process where there is an annual planning that is always there because you have to still, typically because of financial reasons, because you're planning for the next financial year, there is always an annual planning session and an annual review session. And then, of course, the quarterlies are also there because they support the annual function. But they have definitely implemented a monthly review as well. So it coincides with other ceremonies they may have, they call it a retrospective, or they call it a strategy review meeting, etc. So they may follow the typical Kanban cadences that are defined in the Kanban method. They may have their own terminology, but certainly the monthly and quarterly is expanded with the annual and the quarterly is expanded with the monthly process as well. So there is almost a continuous flow of OKRs in the backlog columns and prioritization, and every month they may either add new OKRs to the in progress because something has come up that needs to start, and they're able to start it because they have the capacity to do it now. So suddenly they also realize that they always had the capacity to do new things, but because of the delay built into their planning process, they were simply not looking at it. So now, because of the monthly review process, they are able to also examine the actual capacity to do work, and therefore they realize that there are hidden pockets of organizational capacity that is available, which they are now able to utilize better. So so we have seen that the quarterly process expands to a monthly process. That's the most that we've seen. I don't think we've seen it more continuous than that. But every month there is a review, and new OKRs may come up, or some OKRs may get discarded. But yes, that is the increase in the frequency of that review process. Thank you again to everybody.
Thank you very much, Mahesh. It was very interesting. So let's have some more fun with a drink at the networking. Thank you all for staying with us. See you.
Thank you.